Welcome back to the Discover Fort Smith podcast. My name's Josh Bufink. I'm with the City of Fort Smith, and today I have with us Ashley Backert with the CVB, also known as Discover Fort Smith. And we're talking here. We've been exploring different places in our community, hearing amazing stories of people who are doing incredible things in our community. Today we have another one of those stories. We have Angel Tracy with Miss Laura's Brothel Museum. Thank you so much for being here today, Angel.
Thank you guys for having me.
So tell us a little bit about your background before we get into the museum, which is where we're filming today.
Yep.
This is Miss Laura's Brothel Museum. Previously was also the home to our visitor center, which is now on Garrison Avenue. But tell us a little bit, how did you end up in Fort Smith, Arkansas?
Yeah.
Or are you from here? I probably should.
No.
I knew that, but I didn't. Yeah, I didn't want to assume that everyone knew that. So how did you end up in Fort Smith?
So I'm from Durango, Colorado, which is a very historic community. But I had some just massive life-changing events, and I decided that it was a perfect time to pick up and just move. And so I did. My son and I moved here, and it was a close toss-up because I knew I wanted to live somewhere really historic, but it was a close toss-up between here and St. Augustine. And I knew someone that lived here, so I was like, well, we'll just go there. So we did, yeah. We've been here for like 6.5 years, and he loves it, and so do I. It's good.
So how did you start working here at Miss Laura's?
So I actually applied to be the administrative assistant for the CVB, which I did for, I've been here for 3 years next month. Nice. And what I was not told during my interview is that managing this as like the tourist attraction was going to be a part of my job. And I found that out really quick, which was good. And, I just kind of came in and got my hands dirty, and, when the time came for us to be able to have our own visitor center, Ashley was like, man, listen, you are doing great there, and I need you to do that. Mm-hmm. And so I love it. It's a great job, and I really like being here. This is a very cool place to work.
I can tell you she was a wealth of knowledge to me when I first started here, as being one of the ones that was still fairly new. Mm-hmm. But her passion, your passion, can't talk to you third person, you're here, your passion about this place and things that she did on her own, extra reading, extra research, talking to people, like it truly was just this natural fit. Mm-hmm. And I remember multiple conversations with Angel of like, I think this is where you need to be. Like, I truly see this being something that lights your inner spirit. Mm-hmm. And I want you to be in that space because it means a lot when you work somewhere that you believe in what you're doing and you appreciate it. So it was just a natural fit for the very get-go.
Yeah. And I'm really proud of all of the things that we've accomplished in the last 3 years. I think it's been a lot of change, but it's been really good. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, why is this place called Miss Laura's?
Yeah. I mean, it rolls off the tongue a little bit better than Miss Bertha's, know? But Laura was actually our first madam. Okay. Weirdly, she didn't have the house for very long. Bertha was our second madam, and she had the house for 37 years. Okay. But, like I said, Laura rolls off the tongue a little easier. I think it was Miss Laura's. And, even after being Miss Laura's as the actual brothel, it was Bertha's Place. And then it was Miss Laura's Social Club for the restaurant. And then now, it was Miss Laura's Visitor Center. And then now Miss Laura's Brothel Museum. So.
Yeah. So what's the timeline here? So when did it first begin, and when did it kind of move over to being a museum where it is now?
So 1898 is when the property is purchased by Laura. Okay. She was operating another house down here it was Commercial Row at the time. So she's operating another house down here, and she buys the property. She borrows some money from a couple gentlemen in town and builds and furnishes the house. It's open for business around 1903, maybe a little bit before that. And she sells it to Bertha in 1911. Bertha owns it until she passes away in 1948. It passes over to a gentleman who lived here with her. He lived here as a private resident until 1962. And then various little passing throughs at that point, willed to this person, willed to that person, and then it gets donated to the city of Fort Smith.
So was it an active brothel during that entire period from like 1898 to 62? Or
so around 1948 is when we know for sure.
Okay.
The madam portion of that stops.
Okay.
I know that there's rumors that it went for a little bit longer, but I've not seen any evidence of that. So still digging. The research never stops, right? I just have to keep getting my hands dirty. We're doing so much stuff right now that it's hard to like keep digging into some of that stuff, but we'll roll into slow season and I'll start doing some more research. But
I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Based
I've
on
got all
that.
the answers.
So 1898, this property was purchased, you said. So was that odd for a woman to purchase a property and run her own business like that during that time period?
No.
Okay.
Arkansas actually passed some of the very first women's property rights laws.
Okay.
So women in Arkansas, I think it was 1896.
That's an example of us being Arkansas's
Absolutely.
trailblazing city.
That's right. So yeah, they passed these laws, and these are one of those things that there's always this idea that there are, men that are backing these purchases, that the property is really not in these women's names, and that is not a true statement. While men were lending the money for them to do some of these things, the property really was in their names. Wow. There's like funny stories about them actually putting fictitious names on different licenses and stuff like that, literally John Doe, so that they can't get in trouble for things and stuff like that happens for sure. But, none of these women are going by their real names anyway, for the most part. Wow. But I do think Laura was her real name, and I do think Bertha was her real name. So, interestingly.
Wow. So what do you think has changed in this building and this property since 1898 to where we currently are now?
Yeah, so much actually. The building was moved at one point. A lot of residents remember the tornado in 1996. And at that point was when the building was donated to the city of Fort Smith, was in 96. The visitor center opened in 92, but it wasn't donated to the city until after the tornado. And they figured out that there was enough damage and enough water saturation that they had to backfill the basement and move the building. So that happened in 96, or I guess it was really 97. It took them about a year to move the building. But if anybody's ever been over here, behind us is B Street, and there's a black fence that's along that line, and that's where the house used to be. So, this didn't become a commercial route until a little bit later. I'm going to say probably at post 1970, but you have all of these big trucks that are starting to come down here also. So I think it's a good thing that they moved the building. But while Bertha was here, she painted all of the woodwork that was in here like a gross tan color, and she painted the house white. And so I don't actually know what the original color of the house is. I'm hoping that during some of the restoration that we'll maybe find that out. I don't know, maybe. But so I do know that for sure. And so when the restaurant was here, that was in 1983 to 1988, they actually did the largest restoration to this building that's ever been done. So we're very, very thankful for them. So they've got the woodwork restored and the exterior, and it's beautiful. So I'm really glad they did that. But let's see, I'm trying to think of other changes. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
But you guys have you've spent a lot of time making sure that each of the room really matches specific periods or specific scenes that would have been, I guess, from 1898, or do you focus on different time periods in different rooms, stuff like that?
Yeah, different time periods. So we do a lot of reading. I have an extensive reading list for our people.
Nice.
But there's a lot of pictures that go along with that. And
If people are interested in reading the materials you're talking about, what's the best way to get those?
We actually have the list here.
Okay.
I'm working on trying to get it published to our website because it's pretty lengthy, but there's pictures all over the place of different brothels and really what they had. And so it's easy. Our 1920s room is actually the one I'm the most proud of, but it's because the Everly Club, which was in Chicago, was run by Minna and Ada Everly, and they had one of the most opulent brothels that's ever existed, very high end. So we kind of fashioned our 1920s room after that. And then we had some other ladies who were in Colorado, in Salida, and she had kind of had like a wide range of brothels. And so we fashioned some of the rooms after her brothels because it was kind of a mix. They weren't super fancy, but still pretty nice. So we kind of tried to go with that a little bit too.
That's cool.
Yeah. So we do go from, we call it rooms through the ages. So we have rooms through the decades. So 1900, 10, 20, 30, 40. And then we've got a room set up for the restaurant. And then soon we'll have a coming to current room.
Nice.
I'm super excited about.
Yes.
That's the one that for me, I'm like, let's bring this thing full circle.
Yeah.
And
that was
talk
Ashley's
about,
idea, 100%.
I'm not taking credit for it because whatever it becomes, that's going to be you and your team. But we talk a lot. And one of the things that I love is in the bathrooms and stuff like that, it talks about and gives resources for people that are being human trafficked now, how to recognize it or whatever, because it's still something that's going on. And so I love the fact that it didn't just stop. Mm-hmm. And this team is doing such a great job of wrapping that in and saying, hey, it's still in existence. It's still a thing. And let's kind of sit down and talk about what that means for our community and nationwide. So
that's good. And you guys are we were discussing this earlier. You guys are looking to open that room and kind of do a grand reopening here in March 2026 for Women's History Month. Is that right?
Yep. That first Friday.
Oh, the first Friday in March?
Yep.
So we've already got a date.
I do. Yeah.
All right.
It's going to happen.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it'll be good. And we'll unveil that room that day. We'll have a famous podcaster that's here. Her name is Caitlin Bailey. And then we'll have a little comedy show that'll happen and hopefully, just other programming that'll be throughout the day. But Women's History Month is a big deal for us. We do a lot of different presentations that month. And, we try to focus on our timeline. So, we'll do anything from the late 1890s all the way through the 1940s. But that coming to current room is going to be special because we'll really focus on really the evolution of sex work. So it'll be from 1950 to where we are now because, you have human trafficking that's happening, but it's evolved into something that it wasn't before. So there's a lot of things that are out there right now. So we plan to talk about them. But, speaking to the human trafficking thing, we do talk a lot to Monarch 61, which is over in Van Buren. It's a women's resource, aftercare facility, run by women, nonprofit. And just actually tomorrow we're going to interview Margie Nobles with the Fort Smith Crisis Intervention Center. And we do some presentations with them in January, which is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And so we do some roundtable discussions with them just to kind of get the, what do I do and what does it look like, and so we try to do that stuff too. So that room's going to be, it's not going to be a hodgepodge, but it's going to be a very intense space. And so we're trying to deliver it in the best way we can. So, yeah.
And I think most people think that trafficking can't happen. And I know this is a little off topic, can't happen in Fort Smith. You don't think about Fort Smith being a hot spot for it. And I'm not saying that it is, but I think it can occur. And I think when you have a major highway, it automatically kind of brings it in. And then you look at some of the nation's biggest events that are going to be coming in with, the Olympic Games in 2028, where you've got the world stage, you've got FIFA World Cup that's going to be coming in 26. Again, you're going to be on the world stage. People are going to be passing through this area as they travel from Texas and up to Kansas and stuff like that. Yeah. It's realistic and it's something that I think if people are aware, I think there's an opportunity that Miss Laura's can really be an educational center to help someone in the right way. And I think that's one of my hopes as we continue to develop this place is that we help people.
Yeah. That's the biggest hope with that room.
Yeah.
Get your brain juices flowing.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys have both kind of hit on this a little bit, but why is it important to preserve this history?
Yeah.
You know, it can kind of be a taboo topic, maybe a little touchy subject for some people, especially in our community. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So why is it important to preserve this history?
This is women's history.
Yeah.
Period. This place represents a time frame when women had very few choices. And it's kind of an example of what happens when they come together, pool their resources to figure out how to make things happen. They were movers and shakers in their communities. They were influential. They did great things for their community. I know that sounds crazy and a little bit non-traditional, but I can. A lot of my knowledge comes from other communities, but a lot of people like to say, well, but Fort Smith is so different. But in this world, it's really not. The same things that were happening there were probably happening here. One of my favorite stories is about Millie Clark QC, who had brothels that went all the way from Silver City, New Mexico, all the way to Ketchikan, Alaska. She was a real estate investor. She had businesses all over the United States. But she had some miners that were in Silver City that went on strike, and the community refused to pay them better. And she supported them, kind of like we have the Salvation Army today. She funded that strike to make sure the miners' families could eat and things like that. And so there's stories like that all over the place. So we like to talk about that stuff. Also, with the current temperature of our nation, it's even more pivotal that we continue to talk about what happens when women don't have choices. And so we're, in addition to that, one of only 9 brothel museums that are housed in former brothels across the United States, trying to work with some of them to try to promote each other.
That was going to be my question. Like, are there more? Is there like a coalition of some sort?
It'd be great if there was a coalition. I talked to the people in Cripple Creek and I was like, hey, I'm going to do this brochure maybe, let's see if it happens. And she said, listen, you do the brochure and I will do a passport. So people can get their little thing punched off like the national parks. So we'll see. And I'm working on it. So, but yeah, they're all very excited. And, I think in this world, it can feel lonely, that we're the only ones talking about it, but we're not, right? I mean, the Museum of History talks about women's history. We have some really big movers and shakers in this community that created this space. Women created this space that we live in. And, they created our public school system. They created the public libraries. Women created that.
Right.
And the story doesn't just end with sex work. Some women did really great things when they left here, or places like this. I can't say here specifically, but some women did really great things leaving this profession. It was kind of a stopgap for some women. So I'm going to get my money up underneath me, and then I'm going to leave. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to do whatever. They were still people too. So it's women's history through and through. I said recently in an article that was written for someone's paper, their master's, is that,
sweet.
Women's, this women's history is unique because there's not a city or a town or unincorporated town in this entire nation that cannot say that sex workers did not have a role in building their city. We can deny that if we want, but we can't say it truthfully. The men went first and the women followed because there was money to be made.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, I'm thinking through, you've taught me so much in this building about everything that has happened and kind of what they've gone through. And, from my take, it's more of the opportunity to remind people that they were people first.
Yep.
And you said it right, in a time where politically it can be polarizing. At the end of the day, it was somebody in this community. and they had a role, and they interacted with other people from the community, very high-ranking officials within the community. And so you can't say they weren't part of a story, because they 1,000% were a part of a story. And we're eager to share what we value and consider to be the right things, but it's not our job. And I love Angel for this. It's not her job to judge what happened. It's her job to share the story and keep it very factual, which I think that's been a huge change within this building, is you've kept things very factual. But present the facts and allow that to then help guide people with whatever they're going to feel about it. But if you don't know, then the stigmatism hits, and it's like, that's what you're doing for a job. And it's like, okay, well, if that was your only option and you had to survive, what would you not do? Even now, what would you not do to survive? So I think that whole idea of like, if we don't talk about it, if we don't know about it, like we're deemed to repeat it. Like there's, you take away too many rights, you do too many things, whatever it may be, we're going to repeat it. And it's just a matter of like, what lessons have we learned up to that point?
Yeah. And I think there's sometimes we want to sanitize history a little bit in order to match the narrative that we have in our minds. But that's not what, as a historian, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to show what history was, learn from things in our history, and move forward. Sorry, go ahead. I know you have something on the tip of your tongue.
It's a part of that crazy little ecosystem that is the city of Fort Smith. Our city government played a huge role in the development of what happened down here. And they weren't the only ones. Storyville it's the largest red light district that's ever existed in the entire United States. It was 37 blocks of segregated red light district, and it was managed by their city government.
But not here. Storyville is in
New Orleans. Yes. And it was not the first that regulated, but it was the most successful. And our city, 7 years after that began, or 8 years after that began, our city here decided, with the uptick in, the VD commission was coming to fruition. There were a lot of public health scares that surrounded this type of work. And regulation meant that they kind of had a finger on what was that going to look like? Can we regulate? And absolutely they did. And I think it's really important for folks to know that our city actually took an active role in trying to keep everyone safe and okay and well. They had to undergo medical care. They had to pay fees and licenses, and they had all of that stuff. And weirdly, fines from prostitution made up a big part of our city budget for a long time.
Could you imagine that being a line item in the budget now?
No.
Sorry, we could all just have a really good laugh about that one.
Let's talk about revenue streams. I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
And I'm sure it wasn't like, I'm sure it wasn't like prostitution, fines and fees or whatever.
Oh my God. I think the city clerk at the time, I think their family still lives here, but it's again like they're those little fingers that touch everything. This house was a part of our entire community. I think there's a lot of confusion about what was occurring in the city during the time that we were active or, coming to fruition. Laura was actually here for a while before she opened this house. And like I mentioned, she was running another house. There were already a couple of houses down here. I think there were 2 or 3 that were on, I call it the 200 block, but over here where the refrigeration company is at. And that was the house that she was managing before she created this space. But they were, I like to call them the OG madams, but we had 4 madams that were here in town that were already seeking medical care from Dr. J.D. Southard, who was a doctor here for a long time. But they clearly had done this before. They knew the value of medical care. They're not stupid. They might be women in the late 1800s, but they're not dumb. They also were if your workers, your women are not well, they can't work, whether it's regulated or not. But our city put a lot of rules in place, and it was that way from 1907 to 1924, and I think it worked well. Most of it, albeit city ordinances, was managed by the Fort Smith Police Department, not necessarily the actual city directors at that time or whatever, but the judge played a huge part at that time. It was this weird little ecosystem.
Yeah.
But a lot of communities did that. It wasn't just here. So I think it played a big role.
So as you've gone through and done the research, like what's the most random thing? Like if you had to pick one fact now that you've uncovered and you're like, that is random. And I know you've come across a lot, but like one that just sticks out as like, okay.
So I have two.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So the one that actually,
right? Rock, paper, scissors.
So the one that actually pertains to our house is that the night that Bertha got married to what would have been her third husband, I believe, his name was Mac Dean, at the reception that was here at the house, she got shot in the stomach, and her husband, Mac, and I think it was his brother, got arrested and taken down. She recovered, obviously. She was here for 37 years, but I just thought that was insane.
Yeah.
And she was, I think, Bertha,
happy marriage.
Yeah.
Talk about the Wild West. Honestly, that just is a picture of, in my mind, that's what I imagine Fort Smith.
Well, that's in 1917.
Oh,
so,
yeah. Well, maybe not then.
Yeah. Bertha, I think she was like one crazy woman. At one point, the neighbor over here, who was a gentleman at the time, talked her into jumping a fence to beat up the other neighbor on his behalf for whatever reason. But my other thing that I just recently found out, Arkansas has more dry counties than anywhere else in the United States. And Prohibition, I think, started in 1919, right? That our federal laws started coming to fruition, but Fort Smith decided to start passing laws in 1911. I'm like, man, that's a big step forward there. But I picked up an arrest record book over at the Museum of History, and I was like, oh, 1911, let's see what was happening then. Just lots of arrests for transporting alcohol. That's what. All of it, the whole book. I was like, man, okay. Well, I'll come back for this later.
Yeah. Let's see how this ties in.
Yeah.
So what do you see for the future of we kind of talked about the ribbon cutting and stuff. What do you see for the future of this building?
Yeah.
In particular.
And talk about the events that you guys host, because you guys do incredible events.
One coming up at the end of October. So,
that is our future, I think, our huge events. So we are a rentable space now. We have the front lawn, which is beautiful, maintained by the city of Fort Smith. And then we have our back bar area, which, people could do little events at. Our upcoming event is the Radium Girls Paint and Sip, which we do every year. So this is our second year, I should say, every year. This is our second year. We expanded, though, and are doing 2 dates because we sold out so fast last year. So it'll be Halloween Eve and Halloween this year. We partner with the Regional Art Museum. Petra Radcliffe comes down and she does the painting, and then we do a presentation about the Radium Girls. And it's the one thing we do all year that has absolutely nothing to do with sex work. So it's great. It's a lot of fun, and it's going to be a different painting every year.
What are the Radium Girls? You're going to have to fill me in.
Yeah. They are an example of what happens when women don't choose this. No, I'm just kidding. It was one of the options women had, which was very dangerous factory work. And what they did was, during World War I, they started utilizing radiated paint to paint watch dials so that the numbers would glow in the dark. And that way the officers could see their watch faces in the trenches. That's really kind of what started it. Marie and Pierre Curie discovered radium, and the doctor, I'm just going to call him Dr. Sabine. That's not his actual last name, but I can't say it.
Yeah.
But he ended up creating this illuminated paint called Undark, and they created the U.S. Radium Corporation. And essentially the women were encouraged to lick their brushes so that they could get a really fine tip with this radiated paint. And over the course of all of the years that they were open, these women died of really horrific causes because we all know what radiation does to people. Like, I think the worst story that has come out of all of that is the woman who went to the dentist and he put his hand in her mouth and her jaw literally just fell off of her face. I know that's really morbid. I'm sorry. But so it's just stuff like that they encouraged women to apply because they had small hands and they could get into things a little bit easier. The thing that was really horrible about that whole thing is they accused them all of having syphilis rather than radiation poisoning. So it was pretty terrible. But we talk about all kinds of things, during that presentation, but really their situation led to us having, like the Workplace Standards Acts and OSHA. Everybody knows what OSHA is. They're the, the people no one likes, the safety guys, right? But
I know some great safety guys.
Me too. I'm engaged to one of those guys. But it's a really crazy story, but it's the reason we have current work safety standards. Those women creating things, but they were some of the first people who won lawsuits against a company for workplace standards that resulted in damage or death or diseases. So it's pretty interesting. So we talk about that. And then in December, we do our annual, we're always going to call it a Christmas soiree, but last year was the Not So Silent Night. This year is the Christmas Nouveau Soiree. And so we will talk about Alphonse Mucha. We like to ruin Christmas good and proper. But
I mean, if you're going to be in the house, you might as well have a little bit of fun with it.
That's right. So last year we talked about some of the ballerinas that were painted by a painter. This year we're going to talk about Alphonse Mucha. He did really quintessential Art Nouveau paintings, but most of the models that he utilized were sex workers, which is often the case. Even Edvard Munch, I guess I was saying his name wrong my entire life, but who did the Scream, some of the women that he painted, which I didn't know he painted women until recently, but they were sex workers as well. So it's a pretty common theme. So we'll talk about that. And Bridget Duncan comes down and she does an art history presentation. And we get some local musicians and local singer. And we kind of do this little roundy round thing out here in the rest of the house. And we'll have some food and, sips and things like that. And it'll be great. So that's our second year for doing that. Women's History Month, like I mentioned, a big deal for us. We partner with the UFish Jazz Cats during February for Black History Month. They come down and we do something called an evening in Storyville. This year will be a ticketed event. This will be our third year doing that. And they actually come down and they play music that was born in Storyville. Some of the most famous jazz musicians known to mankind were born to women who were sex workers in Storyville. Like Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton. Wow. Yeah, Billie Holiday. So pretty fantastic. So they come down and they play that music, which is pretty great. So let's see. I don't know. I'm missing stuff. I don't know. We do
There's always something going on. They have a book club here.
Oh, yeah. Gosh, how can I forget that?
So I mean, it's just there's always something. And I think if you're just interested in the history, like look at the website, look at social media.
Yeah, you guys have great social media.
Thank you.
So great.
I don't even know what I'm doing, but it just kind of happens.
Yeah, no, I mean,
she knows what she's doing.
Share.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, she knows what she's doing.
No.
So what's the admission to get into the museum? How much does it cost?
Yeah.
And I guess you guys do guided tours through the space.
Yeah. Guided tours only. We don't have interpretive boards because we want to preserve the space as best we can. So we like to tell the story. It gives people a chance to ask questions.
There are great questions.
They are great questions, always. The older folks are, the better the questions are. I'm just going to say.
That's awesome.
So it's $8 for general admission. We do offer discounts for veterans, first responders, anyone over 55, active duty. So we also, though, have a token package, which is kind of cool. We created our own little kitschy commemorative funny token that tokens were how these women were paid during the time that they worked here, not just here at Miss Laura's but in all of Commercial Row. And in Fort Smith in general, they utilize tokens for a lot of things, not just the brothel. So we have that package, which is $13. Yeah.
That's cool. So guided tours, $13 for the package with the token or whatever that comes along with it. And then you guys are open Monday through Friday or
Monday through Saturday from 10 to 4.
10 to 4.
Yeah.
Nice.
Our hours will change a little bit between December and February, but that'll give us a chance to get some cleaning and big projects done and caught up on some things. So use our slow time wisely.
And also, if you're here, like they have a really great gift shop. And I know that sounds funny, but the gift shop is absolutely phenomenal. And it is a mixture of a lot of different things.
Yeah. We have the coolest coffee mugs. We just got them. They have a little bow for the handle. They're pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
And then we actually found, when I went to the Arkansas Museum of History in Little Rock, found this really great company that does all these goat milk soaps and lotions and stuff. And they're here in Arkansas. They're in Hinesville, Arkansas. So we started carrying their products.
There's
awesome.
Ornaments, there's magnets, there's keychains, there's apparel, there's just some really cool stuff that I think if people are interested in history, you can kind of now go around to most of our sites and grab something that is really unique.
Yeah. So I imagine, younger folks probably parents may not want their kids at Miss Laura's, exploring Miss Laura's. But so what age do you recommend for people to start bringing, kids or students to come, I guess, because my kids have asked me, what is Miss Laura's? I'm like,
maybe not the time to have that conversation.
I always like to say for like the little ones, we don't ever say anything that's crass or inappropriate. Yeah. Although we have nudity in the building. So that's usually where the appropriate.
I want to make sure that we're very clear. It's with paintings and pictures. Yes. It is not staff.
It is not people.
It is not
physical
that's a
people. That's a good thing to say.
Just want to make sure we're very clear on that.
Yes.
Thank you for the clarity.
You're welcome. Nude paintings in the building. There we go.
Stained glass, it's gorgeous. But
yes. But for the little ones, it's sometimes nice to just say, it's a place where guys used to go to hang out with girls sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a really pretty house. But we recommend 16 and up, not to say that we're stopping people at the front door, but we like to just say things like, I want you to understand that this is mature content and there is, nudity upstairs. Yeah. So,
you use parental judgment,
And you also can't control what other people are asking. Yes. I've been on the tour and I've heard the tour. It is very well done, but you can't control others in their Q&A sessions.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Things like birth control and termination and, their medical care and what they had to go through and things like that. Yes. Things you don't necessarily want them to learn about. Although some people do.
The very first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the very first time. Yeah, this isn't not the first place you want them to hear that stuff. But we do have homeschool groups that bring their kids, which that's great. We actually recently had a group come from the behavioral sciences class in Morrilton and got a letter back from them that they were just super excited to come back again. And I was like, yeah, great. Let me know you're coming next time. But so I mean, I'm not going to keep anyone from coming in, but we just like to make sure they understand.
Yeah, it's really up to the family, but at the same time, I didn't want people to be caught off guard when they walked in. Like, we heard you on the podcast, but you didn't explain that to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
the poor people at Fall Festival, some of them are like, well, this was a stop, so we just came in, and I've lived here my whole life. I've never been here. I don't even know what it is, with the hands over the kids' eyeballs as they're walking around upstairs. I'm like, gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry. But stuff like that happens.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for the work you're doing here at the museum. I think it's incredibly important. I'm excited to see as things continue to progress here, as the building, things start to get fixed on the building, on the exterior, and then as the coming to current room opens up and all that. So thank you so much for all you're doing here. And as she said, I'll just echo it. I mean, it's obvious that you're passionate about it, that this is, you kind of found your calling in working here, which is I mean, it's amazing. It's really awesome for me to see somebody who loves what they're doing, who gets excited to come to work every day. Yeah. And I see that in you whenever I talk to you about what you're doing here at Miss Laura's. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.